And so speaking of Oracle, I think there is this interesting news that you pointed out about Oracle bringing the autonomous database to Azure data centers. And I had to read this twice to really get my head around what this was, because I hadn't heard about this until you shared it. And it's actually really fascinating to me that if I'm, and you maybe you can give the brief on it here, but if I'm understanding this right, Oracle's actually putting its infrastructure in Azure data centers to effectively co-locate an infrastructure platform. And that is, I think, shocking and enlightening on a bunch of different levels, and also indicative of this sort of rationalization process that I'm talking about. So I don't know, what was your take on that?
Yeah, I found it really interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, Oracle and Microsoft already had a pretty cozy relationship as far as the cloud hyperscalers go in terms of being able to sync data back and forth. But this actually allows Microsoft Azure hyperscaler customers to be able to run Oracle database on Azure infrastructure. And this also means that Oracle is basically using resources from Microsoft. They have dedicated resources within Microsoft Azure. They also had a previous announcement where they were also announcing Oracle database on Google Cloud. So now you have this interesting setup where Oracle, as a fourth cloud, one that is becoming a major cloud, not quite in the top 3 yet, but definitely exists. Oracle now has dedicated space within other hyperscalers. They aren't really in Amazon yet, but you can see this play where Oracle says, we both have our own dedicated infrastructure as well as this these dedicated resources in other hyperscalers. And that part is interesting in and of itself. A second part is that Oracle has always talked about the database first and foremost as the starting point for everything. So they are making their database ubiquitous and making sure that their 800-pound gorilla database will, once and forevermore be the core of Oracle, and that you can get it wherever you want.
So what I'm going to say is probably going to sound a little negative towards Oracle and cynical. So I want to preface this by saying I think this is a very smart move by them. But I think what it sort of demonstrates is that their cloud ambitions were probably never truly cloud ambitions in the truest sense. It was always about them remaining relevant and protecting their database play, which has always been their money maker. And I think this sort of solidifies that, right? This is them going to market and saying, yeah, you can effectively run our systems on our cloud, or you can run them in the other major clouds, and we sort of don't care. And I think that's a smart move. I think that, that honestly, it shows a degree of humility around this, that they're probably not going to be one of the major cloud players, and that's not really what their core business is or should be. And I think that's the right move. I also think it speaks, from the opposite side, that I think the major cloud providers don't really look at them as competition in that way. And because of that, they're willing to do this. Now, I would be surprised if they strike this deal with Amazon, mostly because of the vitriol that Ellison has had for Amazon over the years. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see if they strike an Amazon deal as well, then that will, I think, solidify this as far as where their position is. But again, I think it's a smart place, because everyone I've talked to, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know that I've talked to anybody who is saying we're going Oracle as our primary and only cloud provider. Almost everyone I've talked to, increasingly it's on the list, but it's on that list for these specific use cases, specifically around the database, or maybe if they're using their financial systems or whatever. And so it just, I think it's reflecting the reality of where they're positioning, and I think it's just a really smart move.
Yes, Oracle Cloud, when I see them in inquiries, they come in as a secondary cloud. They have a fantastic cost to performance ratio, at least for right now, which makes them a very good fit for net new projects, but they aren't necessarily seen as the primary cloud. Nobody is pushing all of their stuff over to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure other than in very specific circumstances. But I agree that this database perspective is an interesting one. And of course, going to Microsoft allows them probably to go down market a little bit, because Azure is used more widely, and it's easy to pair that Azure usage with Office 365 or SQL Server or other things that are commonly used.
Well, and I do think, other than, as opposed to Amazon, which has some very directly competitive database offerings, I mean, the reality is that SQL Server, at least in my opinion, has never really been at anywhere near the same scale of robustness that Oracle does. So I think, like I said, I think it's a good move on both parts. It clearly also solidifies sort of Microsoft's approach to being sort of the arbiter for the enterprise, bringing everything together. Again, I think it's a smart move from Microsoft's standpoint as well. So overall, really good. And